Hello everybody, Jose Rodriguez here. I hope you guys were able to catch this past Sunday's live stream where I spoke about the Pro-1000 and what our plans are to transform this printer into something that you can refill and not have to worry about chips any longer. Okay, and of course you may ask yourself, well, if I don't have a chip to tell me how much ink I have, how am I going to be able to track my ink usage? Well, we have a sensor system that we're going to be installing. And Precisioncolors came on at the end of the live stream to kind of touch on that a little bit. And guess what I have right here? I just received my box with all the supplies. I want to give you a little preview what's going to happen before I get into the subject of this video, which is it's going to be about the XP 15000 from EPSON. Let's go ahead and open this. What we're going to have here, we're going to have one little panel. Over here, we're going to have another little panel, basically little circuit boards that will contain 6 connectors and then 1 power connector for USB power. A regular charger will work. And then each one of those boards will have 6 ports. Each port will lead to 1 sensor, another sensor, sensor, all the way down. These sensors will tell you when you are running low. In other words, not really low, actually about 20-25% from empty. At that point, you see the light will come on. It'll indicate tank number 3 of this series, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that would be the gray tank. You would pop it out. Hopefully you have a plug installed. This one is pretty low. And then add the proper amount of ink, which we're going to determine as well, so that you will not have any overflow problems. You will be, of course, connected to a sensor at that point, so that's why it's very important that you proceed with the alteration of the cartridges to allow you to refill via a syringe and needle and that refill hole. So far I have, let me see, several here that I have already converted to refilling with a plug, as you can see right here, and it works well. If you drill that hole accurately, you will not experience any kind of problem. Now, when you have this installed, there's going to be cabling, so you're going to have to do a little cable management. 6 cables will come out this way and connect to this board. That board will connect to power. 6 cables will come out this way and connect to this board, and that board will connect to power. So it's imperative that you have 2 little charger units plugged into some sort of extension cord, and that should provide power for both boards. Now, if you notice, the minute I open the door, it's telling me that, hey, you must be getting ready to change a cartridge, and I cannot proceed to print at all unless I fool the printer into thinking the door is closed. Where in the world do you do that? It's very difficult to figure out. Precisioncolors figured out where the optical sensor is. So we just basically create a little piece of cardboard in this shape. There's a template that will be provided for you. And you take it and you insert it. Right here, there's a hinge right here and a hinge over here as well. You're going to go to this hinge on the left side. Watch what happens. And you're going to insert it all the way in. You see that? It believes that it is being closed. And it says that I have used genuine Canon ink tanks were detected. We're ready to print. The sensor system will tell us when we are running low. All we have to do now is lower our tray, begin to print. We'll be able to look at the boards. Will give us direct input as to whenever a cartridge needs to be refilled. I know that many are complaining about the redundancy of the sensors actually having the reverse effect. In other words, the light will come on telling you that you have ink in the cartridge, and it will go out when the sensor indicates that you're running low. the opposite happens on the board. The light will be off when you have sufficient ink and will be on when you have to then top off a cartridge. Now, most of the time we're going to be working in this orientation. All we have to do is take a look at our boards. If all of the lights are off, that means our cartridges have sufficient amount of ink to continue producing prints. The minute you see one of them turn red, that means that cartridge needs to be topped off. Simple as that. And if you feel like it, you can top them all off at the same time. It just depends how adventurous you want to get at that point. So let's remove our little fooler. We'll put it right here and we'll close the door, and then we'll go through that recognition cycle again, and we're ready to work. Now let's talk about the XP 15000. I hope you guys are going to be quite interested in this. Before I begin, tonight I'm going to do the opening. I'm going to show you the components. I'm going to do this next door on my new cleaned table area. I also have some inks for the Pro-1000, which I needed to get some of the third-party inks because I was running low. And a few other doodads. I have some chips for the Pro 1 as well. Anyway, several projects are going to be in the works. All right, so the XP 15000 from Epson. $350. 13-inch capacity. It does everything but scan. It can print on discs, printable DVDs and CDs. It's got dual size tray for photo printing of 4x6s, maybe even 5x7s as well. It feeds beautifully from the top tray. It has OEM cartridges that can be refilled by you, the user. I am using Precisioncolors inks already. The only catch is that really you cannot buy chips for it at this point or reset those chips. So you have to rely on making that printer chipless by installing a chipless type firmware, and that will basically make your printer look like it's got 100% levels of ink. Well, you have to then develop a habit of every month or two topping off all 6 cartridges. Extremely easy to do. Basically, you flip them upside down and you dribble ink into the exit sponge, very similar to the Pro 10 cartridges and hopefully the Pro 300 as well. So that's all you have to do. I would recommend you get yourself a little clicker, and anytime you do a letter size, 1 click. Anytime you do a 13x19, maybe give it 3 clicks. That will give you an idea that after you produce, say, 50 clicks, it will be time to top off. Maybe less. It depends on your actual images and how much they use certain colors. So that'll be for you to figure out. But how does it perform? And how does it compare to a real photo printer? Okay, such as the P700, P900, even this one, the Pro-1000, or the other Canon models, P800. How does it compare to that? Being that it is a dye ink printer, can you use it to create fine art photographs? Well, the answer is actually surprisingly yes. Now, I have shown you color images in my live streams in the past made by that printer, and they are incredibly good. So I thought, since I have gotten myself into scanning my negatives, my film negatives, that I recently found, finally I found those, and they go back 30 years. So I have been very busy scanning high resolution scans of these negatives and then producing monochrome prints. And on what paper? I'm using Red River Aurora Natural. Unfortunately, I just ran out of it and I gotta order some more. But let me quickly show you some of the results that I am getting with dye ink. And I brought out the dye black because this dye black is phenomenal. I just cannot believe it. I was always under the impression that dye ink simply would not produce great prints, especially black and whites and on matte media. Well, boy, was I wrong. Let me show you really quick my latest scan. This is when we lived in Belgium, the town of Mons, MONS was very close by. We lived next to a canal, and I drove at night where I could see the Mons Cathedral, among other buildings lit up at night, and I took some photographs using an old Exacta camera. If you're not familiar with that, that's one of the first SLR cameras that came out of Germany, beginning, I think, in the late 30s throughout about the 60s, maybe. Anyway, let me quickly show you. This is on Aurora Natural. Take a look at the richness of the blacks, folks. And right here you can see very faintly, you can see some cabling. Okay? Cabling that was actually on the other side of the river or the canal. The detail is tremendous. The detail of the water, the way that the ripples reflected the light from all of the buildings. This is a cathedral, by the way. It's just phenomenal. And again, this is from a 6-color printer, but one ink palette that has yellow, magenta, cyan, red, gray, and black. And I think that makes the difference. Now, the detail is tremendous. I forget what film I used, but it was quite grainy, and I was able to capture every bit of that photographic grain that exists in black and white film. It's phenomenal. I think it's just amazing that I can get this kind of richness on a printer such as the XP 15000. I would have never believed it had you told me it was possible. I would have called you a liar. Let's go ahead and look at the rest. I hope I don't damage this because I want to keep that. I found a negative of a window, typical French home. And there it is. And this is again from film. So you scan the film and then you edit the resulting digital scan to give you the best results. I try to make sure that I have the widest dynamic range, whether the original scan had it or not. I always set my black point and my white point, and then a little bit below each realm so that I have a complete range of tonality. And then I go ahead and dodge and burn like I used to do in the darkroom, like many of the classical black and white photographers did in the 30s and 40s. Now, let me show you. This was, by the way, printed using black and white mode. No profile. It was black and white mode, and I think it was one of the higher grade matte paper settings on the drop-down menu. But again, black and white mode. Now, I went ahead and printed one using that very same paper choice, but using its ICC profile. This is Notre Dame Cathedral, and I got a slight magenta cast. As many of you are complaining quite often, this is what I got. So again, black and white mode, if you're going to print black and white on the XP 15000, seems to work the best. The detail is tremendous. Okay, don't get me wrong. Everything is, I mean, I could not ask for more. It's just slightly magenta. Now, had I made an ICC profile for it, possibly I could eliminate that. But why bother when you can just choose to print in black and white mode? So then I went ahead and said, hey, I happen to have a box of 11 by 14 Palo Duro etching. That's a sumptuous paper. So I went ahead and loaded some of that. And again, look at how stiff this stuff is. Very, very heavy stock. Same image. Amazing texture. You can't see it on video, but it's got a gorgeous, almost watercolor-like texture. And again, this is neutral. So take this home. Black and white mode. Black and white mode. If you want to print black and white images, in other words, images that were RGB, you convert it to black and white. They are still RGB, but now all of the channels have been decolorized. Note the difference. Clearly, magenta-ish, neutral. So that is the secret with this printer. So I am thinking of continuing to scan and continuing to print on that 15000. Why? Why wouldn't I just print on this one, or my Pro 1 or my Pro 10, P800, 3800, 3880, 2080, you name it. I got a ton of printers here because it's easy. It's just so easy to get beautiful results. Boy, like this. That is the reason. That black, I could not ask for deeper, denser black in an area that if you took a measurement in Photoshop, it was about 222. From 000, it was just slightly above 0. And I can see detail. I mean, faintly. It's beautiful, amazing. Again, how can you do that with a 6-color printer, especially with dye inks? Oh, and especially with Precisioncolors inks. Okay, you would expect that kind of performance only with original OEM inks. But as you can see, that is not necessarily the case. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoy this. Next, I'm going to crack open this box and I'm going to show you guys the components that are inside. We'll go through a little bit of preliminary explanation. I'll do a demonstration on a glass of water to show you how the sensors actually can tell when the water levels drop. We'll do a little bit, very visual like demonstration. In other words, it'll be a little easier to understand that when you are actually viewing through a plain glass of water and you see how as I move the sensor up, you see the lights come on or off. So there you go. That's what's coming up next. Thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. We're going to have a lot of fun this week. Happy printing, everybody. Bye-bye.